Welcome back to another episode of Trending Up. We're excited that you've chosen to listen in one more time for the last episode of the Enneagram series. We're very excited. I am very excited because I finally get to talk about myself, I guess that's what I was going to say. But no, the type nines, right? The type nines, the peacemakers, the easygoing, self-effacing type. They're receptive, reassuring, agreeable, and complacent. So very excited for this. And as we kind of get into it, the nines, just so you can kind of have an idea of how they act in different situations. We've been using the at the beach analogy. A 9 at the beach says, I think I'm going to stay in this time. You all have fun, right? So nines can get the rap of being lazy and slothful and not really wanting to do anything. Hotel toiletries, the 9 says, I'm going to use the tiniest amount of each item to make sure no one is negatively impacted by their actions. And so they're very much aware of what others are, kind of like a 2, right? Aware of what other people are thinking and desiring and needing. And they don't want to be a burden, right? So they're like, no, it's okay. You don't need to do this for me, or I don't, it's very interesting. So nines are always just kind of afraid to make people mad and mess them up by their actions and whatnot.
So when it comes let's say we were to be on a plane crash on a remote island, nines would be the grief counselor and the conflict resolver. There would be the person who's there to stabilize the group amidst the chaos.
Right.
And if you've ever celebrated something with a 9, nines would say, like, whatever you want to do is fine.
Right.
Even though it's their birthday. To celebrate, but I'll just be happy with whatever happens. So exactly. Like if it's your graduation or your wedding, you're like, well, whatever someone else chooses, I will be okay. Right.
It's very interesting.
Nines are very
big people pleasers. Big people pleasers. And I think it's because one of the core fears, and we can get to that, is, well, I guess it's not mentioned here, but one of the core fears of nines is conflict, right? And wanting that everyone be happy. And so in doing that, you kind of put yourself down and say, no, I don't really, it's not about me, it's about you. Just because I don't want to have conflict and differing of views, I'd rather everyone be good, and I'll just go along with what the crowd is doing. So nines are accepting, they're trusting and stable. They're usually creative, optimistic, and supportive. They want everything to go smoothly and be without conflict. That's the key. But they can also tend, because of this, to be complacent, simplifying problems and minimizing anything upsetting. They typically have problems with inertia and stubbornness. So there's that side there. At their best, indomitable and all-embracing. Wow, that's a big word. They are able to bring people together and heal conflicts. And that's, I think, a big strength for nines, is that they're able to see different perspectives. And I can see that, I have instances coming to my mind. We were talking about LeBron in Hong Kong and his comments and the NBA and all that, right? And Edgar has his point of view, and I'm thinking like, no, but you got to think about this, and you got to think about,
I know. I was so frustrated.
I was frustrated too. I was like, you got to, what about LeBron's point of view, and what about Daryl Morey's, and obviously not the government, the Chinese government, but thinking about different, perspectives.
So for everybody out there, Sebastian and I actually talk outside of the podcast, and
right.
I was so frustrated with Sebastian because I was passionate about my opinion, and Sebastian was more like, oh, well, I understand LeBron James and what he said. Oh, I understand Daryl, and I'm like, no, you need to. Anyway, so
that's funny, because I felt that way on the other side too. I was like, Edgar, why are you so passionate about this, man?
No, nines, their basic fear is of being separated and losing something. And their desire is to have stability, a peace of mind,
homeostasis
in their life. So, nines, I think, generally are understood to be very wise people, just because of the temperament is already leading in that direction.
Right.
Because of something about wisdom is that you look at all aspects rather than just one. So, so some temperaments look at their opinion more than anybody else, but nines are really open to other people. And I think it's a good temperament to have, but there are some drawbacks. Like we've said, every number has healthy levels of of balance, and then other ones are unhealthy. So what are some motivations that nines have, Sebastian? So what are you motivated by?
I think I think it's, as it says here, but I can definitely see in my life, like, you want to create harmony in your environment. You want everyone to be having just a great life. And whenever there's conflict, for me as a 9, like, I'm okay with, people treating me bad. And even though that's kind of, words do hurt. And I've had instances where, and I'm trying to work on that recently, like not today, but, as of very, very recent, that people say things and they don't mean it, or they're not saying it with ill intent, but I take it and it's just like, it festers in my heart, and I'm like, and I don't know. And so I'm working on that to kind of like not allow what people say to really affect me that much. But 9s want to create harmony in their environment. They want everyone to be at peace. They want to avoid conflicts and tension. Yo, I'm telling you, conflict and tension, even the idea of tension is like, keeps you up at night. It's the sense of like, man, it just ruins your whole day, because you're like, you're just thinking of all the outcomes. And I think 9s maybe we live in our heads a lot, and we're thinking of so many different because we can see different perspectives, we can see different outcomes, and we're just like, and if you allow yourself to go down that path, it's never ending, right? And so they also, we're motivated to preserve things as they are, to resist whatever would upset or disturb them. So if things are going well, why mess it up, right? And especially creating. It's funny, man. I would with the Enneagram.
It's really
No, it's fun. Let me just say this story. It's funny because as I've been going through.
Go for it.
As I've been going through,
go for it.
Learning more about myself and just seeing why I do things, I noticed that, like, we have Disney Park year passes, right, at in Disney World, and I'm noticing Chantal being a 7-8, having that 8, she's not afraid to, like, when you're walking, she's not afraid to just stay put in her place and have the other person move, right? That's kind of her 8 coming in and saying, you got to move. You get out of the way, right?
Yeah.
And as a 9, I realize that even how I act when I'm walking is affected. Because I don't want conflict, I go out of my way.
You shift around. You move.
Avoid even the possibility of conflict, right? So I'm, if I'm leading, Chantal is like following me, and we're like a snake. We're going through, just because I don't want to have that confrontation, right? We had reservations. We were meeting a friend at Disney, and he had reservations, right? And so we were gonna say, hey, and so Chantal's way of doing that would be like, which she was the one driving at the moment. So the person's like, are you on the list? She's like, no, but our friend is there. And she's like, oh, well, you have to be. And, it's just it was kind of like chocante, it was very like, no, why can't we, it's kind of, we can just go in. And then we had another time that kind of the same situation. I came and I was driving this time. And before the woman spoke that was at the gate, I was like, hey, how's it going? Are you having a good day? Oh, great. It's good weather. I hope,
you're trying to,
right. I'm smoothing it. I'm trying to put down barriers, and I'm like, hey, I appreciate you being out here. And they're like, okay, what's going on? It's like, look, our friend's in here. He's on the list. I can give you his name. You can see we're pass holders as well, yearly pass holders. And I just noticed that I go out of my way to avoid conflict, or even the possibility of conflict, right? Which could be a good thing, but also it can be very tiring, because you're always trying to, like, you're kind of walking on eggshells, because you're afraid to say something or do something that's going to cause conflict. And many times conflict, and like, you need a struggle to grow, right? That's part of essential of life, right? So that's kind of two things there, two stories that it's interesting. As we've been doing the Enneagram, I'm learning, like, why do I say that, or why do I do this? Oh, it's because I'm a 9. Like, I'm trying to avoid conflict, so. But.
It's very interesting, because I, as a 3, for those that remember the numbers, I'm goal oriented, but I'm also a 2, which is I like to have people like me. Okay, that's like a drive that I have. I think something that Sebastian, that in our friendship we've really worked well, is because I'm wanting to, I balance you, Sebastian. You're so thinking about the other person that sometimes you forget about yourself. But then my natural inclination is to look out for your needs and or your perspective, and work off of that. So in relationships, you need to give and take. You need to be giving to the other person, but that person needs to have the responsibility of giving to you. So
That's
what
good.
we find is that in order for relationships to thrive, you need to have a well understanding about your own temperament and about the other person's temperament and how you work well together. Because I'm sure Chantal brings a balance to you, because
right.
you are so about the other person. Chantal, sometimes I'm sure she has to think, well, Sebastian needs this, so I'm going to speak up for Sebastian in this sense, or whatever the case is. She brings that balance, very, very interesting how it all works out.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And it's cool because once you're aware of other numbers and yourself, Chantal now goes out of her way to really ask, hey, how are you doing? What's going on, right? And I can help her to like, hey, let's make a decision. You're in the air, you're trying to go adventure to adventure, right? So it's interesting. It's interesting to do that. But moving into the biblical realm, I'm trying to think if there's another 9 too off the top of my head that's kind of like that. Maybe Lot was kind of like that too. I don't know. But the person that we found that is a 9, right? Jonah is said to be a 9, just because in the sense of, laid back and accommodating. He's kind of like, and it's true, you could see the idea in Jonah. He's kind of like, meh. God tells Jonah, he was a prophet in the Old Testament, to go to Nineveh, to go speak to them that what they were doing was bad, and that, hey, like what Zoe's doing right now is bad. Zoe, stop, let it. And he needed to preach that they should repent and turn to God. If not, he would destroy them. And so he goes, but he doesn't go, actually. He runs opposite, and he gets eaten by a whale, right? Or a big fish, right? That story. And then swallowed, and he's in the belly of the fish, of the whale, for 3 days or 3 nights, and then it spits him out, and he finally goes to preach, and then he preaches, and the whole city turns to God, and he gets mad. He's like, meh. And at the end of it, he's like, God, at the end of his book in Jonah, he's like, God, I knew you were a good God, a gracious and kind God, and that's why I didn't want to come. Like, I knew you were going to forgive them, So he's kind of like the reluctant prophet. And so I think it's interesting because I think 9s do get that idea of slothfulness, of just, I don't really, I'm just, kind of a little slow. Yeah.
Especially in conflict, right? In the realm of conflict, don't you think? Because when you reflect on Jonah, he was a prophet of God, a messenger of God. But the specific circumstance that to us is based on rebuking an entire city. Nineveh was a huge city with a lot of people, and they had of God, like the idea of doing the right thing, and they weren't. So there's that conflict, and now Jonah's called to go to it, and he doesn't want to, because it's going to make his life worse. He doesn't want to encounter that conflict, and he runs away from it. And then when he does, he's mad at the conflict that God has brought up, and then God forgives. Like, what the heck? Like, why would God call me to go to a conflict, and then he forgives them? At least make a show out of it. So it makes some like fireworks, destroy them. But that's why he's frustrated. And God says, aren't I can choose who I want to like love and take care of. You just need to be my messenger. And sometimes God calls us to do difficult things. And yeah,
that's true.
What are some strengths of 9s?
So some strengths here. You can 9s can easily connect with others and make them feel at ease, which is very true. 9s can see the different perspectives, because they're able to kind of hide their perspective and say, okay, I'm not gonna, which is, I think 9s can be like chameleons. Sometimes you don't know where a 9 stands, or what they're wanting, what they're fighting for, because they're able to blend in very well, right? So they can do that, kind of like John. I was thinking of John too. You care about helping others reconcile with God and with each other. John wasn't like Paul, who was very like, this is right and wrong, kind of like a one. He wasn't like Peter, that was just shooting off the cuff and just like speaking whatever. John was kind of like, I think more reserved. He was able to, I think, just kind of see different perspectives. Even in his story, when he's telling about what's going on, he kind of gives the perspectives of different people. But while your tenderheartedness might make you avoid arguments or conflict with others, you can trust that God is in the middle of those hard things and can use your gifts to point others to the true peace that Christ offers. So Yeah, I think there's a strength in being able to see different points of view, and I think it helps bring unison and unity. Um, yeah.
It's always good to have a 9 in your life, for sure.
Right. So going to personal growth recommendations for 9. Speaking to myself, it is worth examining your type's tendency to go along with others, doing what they want to keep the peace and be nice. So just being aware of it, right, and saying, okay, am I aware that you tend to make decisions? I'm always kind of going with what everyone else. I'm easily swayed, right, and I don't really, and just being aware of that and saying, okay, maybe I'm being brought to do things that I don't want to do, I don't feel comfortable doing, but because everyone's doing it, I'm doing it. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, things to be aware of.
Yeah, so, something that nines should realize is that they need to exert themselves to really not have an idea of what's going on, but to analyze what is going on. Because I think something with nines is you want to keep the peace so much that you assume the best, but you have to look at things with a perspective of, with fresh eyes. I need to really focus on what is happening rather than being naive to think everything is fine. Nines can easily be hippies, don't you think?
Yeah,
Peace and
everything's
love.
cool. Right.
But yeah, but part of nines is that you no part of love is to have
Yeah, difficult conversations. Yeah,
guidelines,
yeah,
to have boundaries.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and that's something that nines could improve on. What
Yeah,
else?
that's for sure. Yeah, and I think this one's very good. And I feel this. Recognize that you also have aggressions, anxieties, and other feelings that you must deal with too. Um, I see it too. Nines I think are just kind of that staple of bottling everything in and then all of a sudden exploding.
Yeah.
And what I've seen,
Oh,
unfortunately, is that I explode with the people closest to me. So whether that be Chantal,
really.
my parents, my family,
Hmm.
just because you kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I don't think it's like a 3 issue of like saving face and being seen as someone that has it put together. But I think it's just a way. I mean, you
Yeah.
feel comfortable among the closest people to you, so you can kind of feel, explode like that. But you also want to keep the peace with those around you. But just being aware that if you don't go through conflict and if you don't address the anxieties and aggressions and anger, you're going to explode, and that's going to boil over. And if not kept
Yeah.
in check, you could really do things that cause harm to other people, right? And so I think it's
Yeah.
best, and I learned this lesson when I started at pastoring. It's easier to have a crucial conversation, an important conflict conversation early on to clear the air, rather than leave it fester and allow for misunderstanding and further growth in that, because then it's going to be harder to confront that later. So it's easier whenever there's something, just go straight to the source and confront it, rather than let it fester and then just kind of getting worse.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And at the end of the day,
Hmm.
nines can lose their own self-identity, and that means
Oh,
losing your own like maintenance.
right.
So what nines need to be aware of is making sure they take time for themselves.
Yeah,
In
that's good.
exerting themselves on serving others, they can forget about their own health. And
Right,
sometimes this is shown in like not having proper exercise,
right,
or not having eating the right things, or then
right,
like it's something that we've encountered in each one of the temperaments is that in order to cope with their feelings, they turn to something, whether it's
right, right,
alcohol, smoking, binging on TV shows, whatever the case is. You find something to be addicted to.
right.
So what you need to do is recognize that you have needs and you need to address those needs, to having self-care.
Yeah,
Personal investment is not just personal, it affects others.
yeah, yeah.
So when you invest in yourself, you're going to be able to invest in other people's
That's good. That's
lives.
good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I think also that just the idea of nines must sacrifice the peace of mind in the short run for the satisfaction of genuine relationships in the long run. So, like I was saying, understanding the crucialness of having
Yeah.
uncomfortable conversations, like you were saying early on, right? And I think nines have to, we have to understand this, that in every relationship there's going to be moments of tension, and when tension comes, don't run from it, don't end the relationship, you know, don't. There's going to be tension, and you just have to learn how to talk about it and communicate and move on, and not hold resentment or anger because or even disappointment because someone doesn't see the point of view or how you see it, right? So learning to be, kind of like Enneagram and Coffee here says, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Not everything is going to be comfortable. Not everything is going to be peachy green and whatever it is, so that's a very good point. I think that speaks to me.
For sure. And Pastor Craig Groeschel, we've mentioned him before, he says, you can't correct what you are unwilling to confront.
Wow.
So nines cannot, you need to eventually confront something. And, this is something that I'm realizing as a people pleaser. Sometimes I want to be liked so much that I don't address things that need to be addressed.
Right.
But actually, it's not that I don't want to be liked or do things that are good. It's I want to be kind.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm kind, I'm able to tell people something that I need to address, but in a kind way, in a kind perspective. And I think that's important to have.
That's good. You can't correct what you are unwilling to confront. And that's true, man. I think that's, for nines, just understanding that conflict is not the end. I think it's more of a beginning, the beginning.
Yeah.
That leads to a positive end, and it'll end right. So.
And just to mention something, conflict depends on the other person's ability to recognize conflict and be able to process conflict.
Right.
So even though you do the right way, you do the right thing of addressing conflict, if the other person is not mature enough to process that, don't get frustrated with yourself. Like it's sometimes the other person not being able to, what, you say that to me, whatever the case is. So you want to work on taking like criticism or something from a loved one, not from someone on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever.
Right.
About someone that you love, recognizing it's not an attack on yourself, but something to address.
Yeah, that's good, because I think it's important. You don't take responsibility for other people's feelings, right? In the sense of, if they're upset at you and you've done, if you've been good, right? If you've done all the right things and people are still upset, it's not your duty to, don't take that upon yourself. That's good.
There's a boundary, right? And that boundary is something that you're going to understand as you get older. And maybe we should have a podcast on boundaries and what you can do before not being able to do anything else, because it's
Proper
not cutting clear. It's not cutting clear. And it varies person to person too, and depending on the relationship. So something to keep in mind.
No, that's good. That's good. I appreciate the wisdom, Edgar. Yeah, I think nines. Thank you guys. Thank you, nines, for being the people that you are, kind and gentle and able to see different points of view. But it's important to be active, to understand that confrontation and conflict it's okay. And it's okay also to take time for yourself to voice your opinion, to say, hey, today I want to go to Taco Bell and we're going to go. Right.
Yeah.
Speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
So guys, thank you so much. Every number that has been represented here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We love all of you. We need you all, not just in our lives and in our community, but in our church, because each of you bring different talents and gifts and abilities, and God has blessed each of you with just amazing things that we're just excited to see how you begin, as you begin to learn more about yourself, you're aware about yourself, you begin to plug into the church and to your community and to your families and friendships more. So we hope that the Enneagram series was beneficial to you. I know it was short, concise. We're not experts, like we said. We're just kind of sharing what we've Googled and Instagrammed. And we just hope that's been beneficial to kind of learn more about you, to be able to just better have relationships with others and with yourself, to better understand yourself. So with that, we leave you guys, and we'll see you next episode as we kind of move into a different phase and different topics. We hope, again, if you've enjoyed it. If you have, share it with others. Share it with the exact number if you know the number of someone else, and hopefully it'll be beneficial to them to kind of learn more about it.
For sure. And please send in any questions you have or any comments.
Yeah.
We can discuss anything on the podcast. So we would love to hear from you. I'm always surprised at who listens to the podcast. So please, if you've been blessed, communicate with us. You have no idea how much that means. So yeah.
All right, guys. See you guys. We love you. Peace.